the follow-up question is, well, when do you know you're ready to start to form a board made up of independent?
I was going to kind of a side note to that. Like, I think most of our stuff that we talk about is operational, and I'm not saying we never talk strategy, but those things don't come up all the time, right? Like we may have an opportunity to do something outside of our main, focus of business, and we talk about that. But those aren't happening like every week or every month or sometimes every quarter. And there's
nobody's holding us accountable to have those conversations because we don't need to, because we're the bosses,
so
we're the king of the kingdom.
In our situation, if we're not discussing operational type issues and we're talking like, what do we talk about? That's
a very interesting question. And actually, I don't know if I've actually ever been asked that question. But my first response is, where do you want to be in, let's just say, 5 years? Where do you want the company to be? If you want the company to be exactly where it is now, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit more profitable, but nothing dramatic, then maybe it wouldn't be a big benefit. If you have big plans, if you want to do something more with this company,
right,
if you want it to fulfill its full potential, whatever that is, then you need somebody that's gonna take the vision that you articulate to them and hold your feet to the fire in terms of taking the strategic steps to achieve that vision.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with, in some sense, governing is as much about ensuring alignment within the business for the purposes of growth as well as risk mitigation. And what I mean by that is saying, look, what's the purpose? What was the purpose of forming this thing? Okay, I got that. Now what's the vision? Where do you want to be aspirationally? All right, I got that. And what are your values? Now that I know that and you're doing your operations, I mean, there's a question like, okay, we're gonna change something and we're gonna enter a new market, we're gonna have a partner. Great. Does that hold to our values? Is that align with our purpose? Mm-hmm. Those are strategic questions. Mm-hmm. So asking that of yourself every once in a while, that's good.
Often, many people will tell you that the best aspect of an independent board is the questions they ask. And then you wonder, well, why didn't we ask those questions? And then you got to think about it. Now, with me, that's not really the case. With me, I would have to say that the biggest thing that I contribute to the boards I'm on is when I understand what the company wants to do and how they intend to do it. My strength is recommending, have you thought about doing it this way instead of that way? Like, oh my gosh, we never thought of that. It's having somebody with perspective on a wider canvas than you guys have painted before that can say, well, that would certainly work, but what if you did it this way? Like, oh my gosh, yeah, if we did it that way, then it would solve this problem and that problem that we were wondering about. And so it's really introducing ideas that just, it would spice up your meetings because it would stretch you guys more. And that's probably would be one of the biggest benefits.
I could just see the accountability of knowing that there's a board meeting coming up and there's these independent directors that are going to be basically looking in at what we have to present about what we're here to talk about in that meeting. It's kind of like when you're prepping for a client meeting, you have to be in front of a client. You're gonna have your stuff together, right, and be ready to go. And I can see that being a good almost like the deadline is the inspiration.
It's best practices.
Yeah.
I mean, the first board I was on, I started a company with two other partners. Both were engineers, and we all had regular day jobs, and we started a software company in 1967. and I was an avid reader of Business Week, Fortune, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. So all I knew was if you had a company, you were supposed to have a board. That was it. So I said, okay, we have a board now. We're a board. and that was that. And then it grew from there. But I knew that best practices was to have a board. Even at that time, I didn't know exactly what it had to do, except from reading. And you guys read in the newspapers all the time about bad boards. You probably don't read much about good boards, but you read plenty about bad boards and bad deals. And so it's also, a big part of it is just, in my experience, I've seen very few companies that haven't stumbled. They haven't made really stupid mistakes. I don't care if it's Oracle or Microsoft or Amazon. You know, the bigger their successes, the more that stuff gets covered over, but they've all made blunders. A good board is a really good protection against doing really, really stupid things that sound good at the time, but they haven't been completely thought through. And all the things you read about are boards that didn't prevent them from, they didn't offer the accountability, whether it was Enron or Wells Fargo or, any of them.